diys-by-dar, and this is the Enchanted Book Rack Part 1. This was a long one, so I decided to break this into two, so the other part will be next weekend. This is the piece that I chose for this project. It is solid wood. I'm thinking either oak or pine. It's in pretty good shape, but there are some surface dings here and there. And it has a pretty heavy lacquer base on it. It's pretty glossy. So I am going to have to knock that down with my surf prep and some 180 grit sandpaper. So I'm going to go ahead and get the top and get the whole entire piece, because this is going to have a lot of molds on it. And it is always best to put your molds on the bare wood instead of putting your paper, decoupage paper, or paint on first and then putting your molds on. So we are going to mold. I am going to use this Let's Resin polyurethane resin, a 2-part 50/50 quick cure resin. So I always make myself 2 cups, A and B, because if I'm making a lot of molds, I want to put the appropriate one in the appropriate container. This cup is a silicone cup that we are going to pour them into to mix them. I do not use a scale and weigh them. I just eyeball my cups and pour the equal amount and look at them on the level, and if they are equal, we're good to go. I've never had a problem doing this way, and I'm not going to measure my stuff. So go ahead and pour both of your cups in your big cup, and you're going to get a stir stick. And you can see it's like a little cloudy in there when that second one goes in. And you're going to stir this for about 20 seconds or until it goes clear. Then you're ready to go ahead and pour this. And I am going to use an IOD mold that is fairy doors. So I'm going to get this poured in, and the reason I am using resin for the doors is, number one, it's going to be a flat piece. So that makes the difference between using DOS clay and resin. Resin is going to cure and be hard for you in 10 minutes. So you're ready to go. And as you can see, these are ready. They have great detail, and I am ready to put my doors on. So popping them out, quite easy. Just go careful around any articulations so you don't break them off. And you are going to use some glue that is Titebond Quick and Thick. And you are going to put that all over the back. Every little area that you have, you make sure that you have glue on it. And once that area is covered, I'm going to go ahead and put this door on and make sure that I have it where I want it, level in the middle. And you can still move it a little bit before it dries, which I tried to do. And I just smear more glue coming around the outside, but you're going to clean that up. And just take a paintbrush with a little water or a paper towel and wipe around it. Clean that excess off, wipe your brush off. It's just nicer to have a clean mold, because whatever glue dries there, that's the way it's going to stay. Now, for the air dry clay, I use DOS. You always want to prep your mold with some mold releasing agent, and I use starch. This is the Veridis mold from IOD, and I'm going to just gently brush some starch inside that mold. I'm going to condition my clay before I try to press it in there, and I just work my way up, pressing that clay into the mold. This is quite a large one, and you can see I pinch it, kind of following the contour, and just make sure that I have enough, because I don't like to piece any in When you do that, sometimes you will get a crack on the other side and then you have to repair it. So after I get this all pressed down, I will tear off the excess with my fingers, with my thumb, pat it down again. Make sure that you get a good pattern on the back of that clay. And then the last thing that I'll do on a large mold like this, I want the whole thing to be nice and flat in the center. I have a knife that is somewhat dull, but still can cut, and I remove it. I start in the center and I just push away from the middle and take that excess off from the middle of the mold. Press it down again after you do that, and then we're ready to remove it, and just bend that back and it should fall out for you rather easily. If it needs a little coaxing, just kind of hang on to it and keep peeling it back and it should drop out for you. And pretty soon here I'm going to have a full complete mold. If a piece breaks off, don't worry about it. You can always attach it back on after you get your mold in place. Now, I need to get the glue on here. This is quite large. You can see I have it from the tips of my fingers going past to my wrist. And you can put these in the freezer, these molds, before you take it out in the freezer. They come out a lot easier. They're easier to put glue on. You just have to wait a little bit for them to thaw out. So one movement, I flip it over, and this is where I want it. Now, if I would have frozen this, I could have just set it on there, and then as it thawed out, started to press those ends down. And this is why I use clay on this portion, because this bends a lot easier than what you can get the resin to bend. But we're going to get the resin to bend. So there's advantages to using resin. There's advantages to using DOS clay. This piece has a combination of both of them. So I'm just going to show you how both of these work. You don't want to press really hard because you're going to obliterate your pattern. When you're using clay, you kind of have to go gently. Make sure everything is down, starting way in the center there, working your way out. And when you are confident that it's in place, then it's time to go ahead and start your glue cleanup. And once again, I just use a brush. I have a paper towel this time. I'm wiping the big gobs of clay if there's any off and getting that out of the way so it doesn't get hard and look like a big drip or funny when my mold dries. So that's how I do my DOS clay. This is going to take overnight to dry. Now when I looked at this, look at it's wobbly. The rail's wobbly. These spindles turn. So I'm going to use the Starbond Super Fast Thin, an instant adhesive, which is used on wood. And they come with these little tips, and you don't get very many. So I would invest in buying some extras for myself. But I'm putting this all along the cracks on all four sides of this rail, and then I am adding a clamp on to hold it tight. Now down in them spindles, I just filled it up until I saw that glue start to come up out of the top. Then I knew there was enough in there, and I did it on the bottom and I did it on the top rails, and I had to leave this for 24 hours before I took the clamps off and checked it, because I don't want molds on there and then these parts are moving. I didn't realize that or think about that because it's just going to crack all your molds off. So I'm working away on my molds. This side is completed with what I am going to do. I'm working my way around. This is going to be a full area of molds going from each side, and even a little bit on the inside, which was not real fun to paint. I probably won't do that again. So a few more molds and we'll have it. We'll be ready. Now, I want to show you the difference between your clay. You can see it's rough, cracked. You can sand this. And when you compare that to your resin is nice and smooth and you don't have those issues. Now, I used resin for these two branches, and that's another thing with resin. You can't meld it together like you can clay. If these would have been clay, I could have just mixed them together. I poured my resin and you can see it's starting to cure. It's getting white in the middle. And you need to watch because I want to take this out sooner. You see that translucency around the edge? We're getting close. Got to watch it now. I want to get this out before it's too hard because I want to bend it. You can see this one, when you pull back, is not pulling away from the piece, and it's still tacky and sticky on the top. When I go to the top one, you can see when you pull, it pulls away from the mold itself, and that's what you're looking for. And I'm going to kind of do this in real time so you can see how long this took me to carefully get this out. I just go around and pull on each end, hang on to it, and try to pull down on the side of the mold to get it to release. And then I am going to pop this out onto my hand, and it is going to be really pliable where I can bend it. This one still isn't ready to go. So I'm going to get my glue all ready to go because I want to work a little bit quickly with this, because once you have it out of the mold, it is going to firm up rather quickly. So I have my glue ready in a little cup with a brush, and I'm ready to get this out. I'm going to kind of start to tip it forward and lightly pull it gently till I have it out. Now I'm going to get my glue on there, and once again glue over the whole entire thing. You don't want to miss any areas. Good coverage. And I am going to put the end of that grouping of leaves over that crack. So I'm bending that stem around that spot, and I need to take and bend my leaves down and around that rung. So they're pretty pliable. And the real trick, I guess, when trying to bend these when they're still semi-soft, is you have to continually push down on them and make sure, because they're going to want to go back to the way that they were, especially if it's a little bit harder. They're going to want to take that other form that they had. So you just have to keep playing with it, and you just have to keep pressing and holding until that glue gets hard and that resin itself gets hard, and it keeps that form that you want. I am going to cover that end, the end from nowhere, with a leaf over the top. So this was that other leaf I was waiting for to get it out and still have it be somewhat pliable, so I could bend it over the top of that branch and tuck it in with the other leaves. And this was relatively easy, so they're both completed. There's my leaf over the top of that, and there is my leaf and little branch over that break. Now I'm ready. Finally, let's paint a silk all-in-one paint. I am going to do 2 coats on here and possibly 3 or even 4 on my molds. because what happens is when the paint dries, it kind of shrinks and then it pulls away from the area that you had covered. And when you go back, then you have to cover it again. So I use a small brush so I can get in all the little crooks and crannies on my design. So I will pick up next weekend with the rest of this, which is going to be painting and adding my decoupage paper. So part 2 will be next Sunday at 7. So catch me at diys-by-dar. I want to take this time to thank all of you for hanging out with me, and I want you to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.